Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle of the end zone, Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, this is Eric, and today we've got a full PPR mock draft for you guys here the day after the Carson Wentz trade where he was sent off to Indianapolis. Might not have too much of an impact on how we draft here today, but that is the current timeline of what is going on. So depending on when you're watching this video, keep that in mind. But before we get into today's video, if you guys are new around here, head down, click that subscribe button, and like this video. And if you guys have been around here for a while and want some in-depth and exclusive fantasy content, head over to our Patreon page that is found at the bottom of the screen and in the link in the description. So thank you guys for tuning in today, and let's get right into the mock draft. All right, we're going to be switching things up a bit in today's video. If you guys have been tuning into our previous mock drafts, you guys will know that we've either been selecting the picks at the top of the board, or what we've been doing here lately is that we've been alternating every other pick and just doing the first 3 rounds or so because we didn't have updated ADP. But Sleeper has updated their website. They've got the updated redraft PPR ADP for us.
Lots of updates.
We are going to be picking. Eric's at the number 6 overall spot, and I have got the number 12 overall position. So we're going to let the ADP do its work, and it's going to take the top 5 guys off the board here. So let's get the draft started, and Eric, you will be first up on the clock.
Let's see what the CPU does. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams. That's standard. That's pretty
fair.
Standard stuff right there.
Full PPR, remember.
Yep,
So
this is
for
full
those of you
PPR.
guys watching, obviously a lot more value to a full reception than in standard or half PPR even.
Yep.
So we'll keep that in mind when we're drafting.
Still got guys like Alvin Kamara on the board. Our concerns with him are kind of just the QB situation with Breeze leaving, and we don't even know who they're going to have. If it's Taysom Hill, we know. I really don't want them to have Taysom Hill as the starting
I don't know,
QB.
that hurts his reception.
But
value.
Jameis Winston would be the other guy, and maybe they draft someone. I don't know, but they're in cap trouble, so
big time.
the worse than anyone. So he's interesting. Nick Chubb, we really love. Jonathan Taylor, we really like, and they just got Wentz. Yeah, so I think that it'd be fun to take Jonathan Taylor here. I can't really think of anyone else that would be worth it. Josh Jacobs, especially not in PPR. That is not someone you want to take here. Tyreek Hill is also interesting. I think I'm going to go Jonathan Taylor here. Some would say it's really risky, but I really like how he looks, and he was definitely a workhorse.
Yeah, I think that Alvin Kamara, if we knew Drew Brees was going to be his quarterback, you're taking him in the top 3 spots, but not knowing where he's going, it's up for argument. I think personally I would go with Alvin Kamara, but I do think Jonathan Taylor can thrive with Carson Wentz if that offense is able to increase their ceiling and be as productive as I expect them to be with a much more dynamic quarterback who hopefully can get things rolling with a second chance here.
Hey,
so,
you can hate me in the comments for not taking Kamara, okay? Put it on me. It's okay.
Here at the 112, so I've got some options here. Not in love with any of the top running backs I see right now. Josh Jacobs, immediately, I'm kind of cringing right now because he's not a PPR guy. He didn't have an explosive play until like week 14 this past season, and it makes sense because his 40-yard dash was a 4.7, so he's not the most explosive guy in the world. Joe Mixon, I really like, but injuries have been a problem. O-line is an issue.
Yeah.
I don't feel too comfortable about him. There's a lot of question marks here. Aaron Jones, my hot landing spot for him that I've got right now, that it's in my brain, is the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, whenever I think of his name now, I see him in the jersey art.
I do, and we don't know because he's not going to be a Packer. I'm almost certain of it. We're $30 million in the hole, or
Miami
at least that's
can
where we
afford
started. Miami's got the cap, young quarterback. You can afford to pay a running back, especially a guy as dynamic as Jones, although I would hate to see Gaskin lose that spot.
Yeah.
This is a tough spot here. I actually did a little bit of a preview mock with this spot earlier on today just to check out some of the guys who'd be available to me. And I think I'm going to end up going the same route I did earlier.
Yeah.
And what I did there was I ended up taking Travis Kelce. And I know that a lot of you guys are like, why are you taking a tight end in the first round? But we've talked about this throughout our mock drafts. especially with the back end of the first round, you've got back-to-back picks firing off, so I can easily turn around right here and take a running back. I just want to take advantage of that positional scarcity and get a guy who's miles above the competition level that he has. I mean, Darren Waller's the only guy I see in the stratosphere of him right now, or even George Kittle. So I think that the tight end position is so thin at the 112 here. It makes sense because I know none of these running backs are going to fall down. I really like some of these second-year incoming players like DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers. I do think it's a bit too early for him.
Yeah.
Like I said, not in love with any of these guys, but I think, to be honest, if I'm going to go for any of them, I think I'm going to go with Aaron Jones because of how efficient he's been. I could even see him getting more carries going to a different team where he's not used as a committee running back with the Packers.
I think that Mixon would be the most ceiling, I think, because we know he's going to start for sure if he is healthy.
Is massive.
Yeah, when he's in, he's 25-plus carries, and he's very good. We know he's super fast, but his health has been really questionable.
One more thing just to keep into account here. This is one quarterback, so running backs and receivers, tight ends even, are going to be more highly valued, and this is a one-flex league as well. So we're not going to see double flex or even two quarterback in this mock draft. You're up here at the 2-7.
Yep. We saw Josh Jacobs go right after you took Aaron Jones. I'm not... Really, this is a PPR league. I would not be happy, even with DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Jacobs. We love DeAndre Hopkins, and he's very, very good, but he plays against Jalen Ramsey twice a year, so that's one thing.
Even I picked Josh Jacobs at the back end of the first round of my half PPR drafts last year, and I paired him with Eckler, and my ceiling was so limited, especially when Eckler got hurt. I'm out of the Josh Jacobs sweepstakes. He's fine, but not a PPR guy.
I really like seeing J.K. Dobbins and DeAndre Swift go here in the second round, though. It's exciting.
It's legit.
Yep. Here, you can call me crazy. I'm going Patrick Mahomes. This team that I'm putting together is kind of a floor-ceiling team. I think both of these players are guys that are very reliable, but they also have a good ceiling. So Patrick Mahomes is by far, besides Aaron Rodgers last season, but clearly that was a great season. I don't know if it'll be the same.
It won't. He won't have 48 touchdowns again.
But Patrick Mahomes, we've seen he's done it several years in a row now. He's been one of the best, if not the best, QB almost every year.
Right. One of our biggest points that we have researched and spent a lot of our time right now as we're working on our draft guide that'll be coming out later this spring is we are taking a big look at consistency metrics and exactly what marks you need to hit on a consistent basis to win the majority of your fantasy games and finish as a top 4 seed. So we took, the numbers of all of the top 4 seeded teams in our SFS paid leagues, and we looked at the numbers that they're putting up on a weekly basis, the numbers that they put up over the course of the postseason, and we found out exactly what number of points you realistically need to get to hit your floor, and then we put that across all of the players in the fantasy database and found the most consistent guys, Jonathan Taylor, Patrick Mahomes, two guys in that top class at their positions, and guys that are really, really trustworthy. So I like how you're starting your team.
Yeah, and if we talk about Dynasty, you look at Jonathan Taylor, was a rookie this year, and he's already one of those really consistent backs, bell cow kind of guy who also gets catches, so I really, really like him. Here, Stephon Diggs is still on the board, and I just have to take him. He was so good this season. I think this team I'm putting together is, again, one of those teams that's just really good for floor, but also has that upside because Stephon Diggs is getting so many catches with Josh Allen.
Right, and when we talk about having that safe floor, you just perfectly executed, I think, what our draft philosophy is going to be going into this season. Hit your running back early, at least once in the top 2 rounds. You've got Jonathan Taylor, it's a top 5 running back right there. Go back, Patrick Mahomes, you've got yourself a top 3 quarterback. And I know a lot of critics or people who are going to complain in the comment section are going to say, but quarterback is so deep. And yes, it is in terms of a points per game basis. But when you're looking at guys who actually hit their marks week to week and don't fluctuate like this and just tank on certain weeks and then go out and explode on other weeks, Pat Mahomes is one of the most reliable players as it gets.
Yeah.
And then you perfectly maintained your ceiling by going out and getting the wide receiver 3 in almost all scoring formats and Stephon Diggs, who has a dream situation with his quarterback play. So your team's turning out really well here. I've got back-to-back picks here at the end of the 3rd round. Aaron Jones and Travis Kelce to start my team off. I've still got some really nice wide receivers I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
I probably want to think about taking another running back right now just because my first running back is not ideal. This pick is going to have a lot of variance depending on the landing spot here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fair to entertain Travis Etienne here at the end of the third round or the top of the fourth. This is kind of where we saw Jonathan Taylor start to go really close to the season.
Yeah.
Those later drafts that happened in later August, even the first week of September, JT crept from the 6th round all the way up to like the 4th round and where he was being drafted at across all leagues. And you see those guys those rookie guys in particular at the running back position who are in positions to start and see a lot of playing time. Their ADPs soar up because young running backs are the most productive players at their position. So here at the end of the 3rd round, I've got a tough choice between Calvin Ridley and Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson and this one is so close to me. Both of these guys you could technically consider as wide receiver 2s for their team because Julio and obviously Adam Thielen. But Justin Jefferson, looking at the stats, he out-targeted Adam Thielen this past year. Thielen was really only fantasy relevant. This one kind of sucks to say, but he had 14 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's what kept Adam Thielen as a wide receiver 1 this past season.
And he's not generally a touchdown guy. That team was behind in a lot of games, and you can kind of talk about it with Kirk too. Just garbage time touchdowns that kind of just occurred at the end of the game.
100%. If you guys don't follow Matt Harmon on Twitter, I advise that you guys would do so. He puts out some really, really, really great stats about just fantasy players in general and puts out some really meaningful stats.
Yeah.
And something he tweeted out a couple days ago was that Justin Jefferson won over 3/4 of his matchups in man coverage, and he is the only rookie, I believe, out of like a class of 4 guys. Calvin Ridley was in the same grouping as him.
Yeah.
As guys who are just elite at beating man coverage. So clearly these guys are both elite options at the wide receiver position. I also like the weaker secondaries at times in the NFC North. Obviously, Jair Alexander plays really good for Green Bay, but in terms of the Lions, Jeff Okudah was not so hot last season. And with Chicago, I think you guys have a good secondary, but you can produce against it. Maybe not the best numbers, but it's manageable. Nonetheless, though,
I really like the pick.
Yeah, here at
especially
the 4-1.
for PPR.
Right, Justin Jefferson is going to see 100-plus receptions, I think, this next season. And you and I both agree he's one of the most seasoned route runners already in the league.
I think that's a great value pick there at 12.
Yeah, if I can get my hands on Justin Jefferson in the 3rd round this season, I will be all over that all day. Here at the top of the 4th, I'm going to go Travis Etienne. I think it might not be in the start of the season the most flashy pick, but I think you stick with him. You grind it out. Jonathan Taylor had his tough moments this past season.
Yeah.
Stick with your rookie running backs. They'll get their shot, and they'll get on track. I think Travis Etienne, if he goes to a good landing spot, has a chance to be a really special player.
Yeah, I agree with that. Here, we had Jamar Chase just go. Calvin Ridley clearly went.
I think that's a bit early.
Yeah.
If we're being honest. I think the ADP right now, some rookie pre-draft type, they might be getting a little bit skewed.
Mm-hmm. I honestly think Amari Cooper is someone that should really be considered here. Amari Cooper looked very good this season, and we're expecting Dak to be back and ready to go. Dak will be back. So
yeah.
I've got my QB. I think running back is also something to consider here. Todd Gurley and David Johnson are not guys I'm really high on. I think that David Johnson's going to be kind of fading out.
Yeah, I don't expect him to be very relevant. And I know the Texans, they don't want to trade Deshaun Watson and whatnot, but regardless, I think, especially if he leaves, he's going to struggle more because they're not going to have a relevant passing game. But even so, if he's still there, he's approaching, age 30? Let me click on him here. Yeah, age 29 right now. He's only getting older. So
yeah.
He's trending down for certain in my rankings. I'm surprised to see Mark Ingram is still... I guess you're way down there on that running back board.
Oh, yeah. I am a Bears fan, and I think that the Bears will address offensive line in the draft at the least, and hopefully free agency if we can free up some cap. So I'm going to go David Montgomery here, pair him with Jonathan Taylor. I think David Montgomery's kind of being slept on. I know this is a 4th-round pick, but David could end up being a top 10 running back this season.
Especially with the defenses he plays.
Yeah, it's just they're not great run defensive teams. The Packers have struggled with it, even though they've addressed some of the things. They need to, I think, bolster up the D-line with run stoppers, because you kind of developed Dean Lowry into a pass rusher, which was nice.
Yeah,
but you have a lot of pass rushers already on that team.
Right. One thing I want to note here, I think there is some significant rookie hype going on because we've got Trevor Lawrence off the board already. So, and like we said, this is not our ADP. This is people who are doing mock drafts on the Sleeper Fantasy app. So that just says that the fantasy community out there loves their rookies. But another guy I expect to tank down this list is Todd Gurley. I think I actually prepped a video for it about some of my guys that I think are just going to see drastic shifts in their fantasy value this season. I don't think Todd Gurley will be a starting running back next year. There's just not enough jobs open, and I think that even if he does, this past season with the Falcons, his only relevant touches were on the goal line. So I think Todd Gurley is going to see a huge hit and fall even later than the 5th round in this year's drafts.
There's some really interesting players here, like DJ Moore, who is a free agent. I expect him to go back to Carolina. I'm not 100% sure, though, which is interesting. Robert Woods, who's going to have Matthew Stafford throwing to him, which he could be a top 10 wide receiver with Matthew Stafford. We'll see what changes they make to that offense, because with Stafford, you open up a little more. With Goff, it was a little more schemed, and I don't think that it's going to be as much like that. I think that Sean McVay is going to have some interesting things to do with Robert Woods, so I think valuing him would be important, and DJ Shark as well. They're going to have most likely Trevor Lawrence go to the Jags, and that's a nice QB to throw to a decent receiving core. So there's a few guys I really like there. I think that running back you can kind of fade at this spot because, Melvin Gordon is interesting. He puts up those touchdowns for sure still. Myles Gaskin, we still really don't know. I think he is going to be replaced or at least share carries with a guy like Aaron Jones.
Right, I'd agree with that. I think that he's an RB2, that's for sure.
Ronald Jones is still up there, but I fear that Leonard Fournette is going to return, which really hurts my dynasty team.
I think that's going to happen as well. Ronald Jones could be a top 7 running back if he was given 20 touches a game, but I don't think Bruce Arians will ever give him the shot to do that, unfortunately.
So here, my clock's running down a little bit. I think I take the risk on Robert Woods. We still don't know where DJ Moore is going to go. I'm not an Odell Beckham fan.
No, I expect him to be on a new team regardless. The cap issues are going to force the Browns to move off of him, I think.
I think it's too much of a risk to go with Washington at this point. I think later, if we find that clearly after the draft, we'll know if they took a QB or not. And that's not one of the only needs on that team, but they are building a nice team. I'm going to go Robert Woods and take the risk on Matthew Stafford. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp produced with Jared Goff, and that scheme is going to work no matter what. And I think Matthew Stafford's a step up. So
for sure,
I think Robert Woods is someone that people should really keep an eye on.
Yeah, if you're talking about even Cooper Kupp, we saw him fall way down after that. What was it? Really strong 2018 season, or was it 2019 season? They moved into that 12 personnel offense, and he really struggled. And he still saw a lot of targets, but the touchdowns came down, the yards came down. I think with Matt Stafford, you've got more of a dynamic in that offense for big play abilities, and I think that's just going to give them the opportunity to be more fantasy relevant as well. Add in Cam Akers, play action should be pretty good. So I think the Rams are in for an uptick in offensive production. Here at the 5-12, I have got 2 running backs, so I think I'm squared away there for now. Obviously, I'm going to have to address that later on in the draft, but we've already kind of hit that cliff. James Conner, Leonard Fournette, David Johnson, the last 3 picks on the board, all running backs. Those are all guys you don't want to be rolling into your starting lineups. Those are ugly picks. Even before that, Kenyon Drake, Todd Gurley, Javonte Williams. Who knows if he'll even be a starting running back day 1 off the draft. So a bunch of just risky projection picks here. I think I go back and capitalize on wide receiver. Look how deep the wide receiver position is here. DJ Moore, in the final year of his rookie contract, excellent player. I really love his talent, but Robbie Anderson saw a filthy amount of targets last season. Tyler Lockett, he's got Russell Wilson. He's a bit of a boom-bust guy, so not my favorite option. Terry McLaurin might just be the guy I end up going with here. He is such an alpha for that Washington football team, And he has shown throughout his career that the quarterback play does not matter for him as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, Heineke is serviceable, and he'll get the ball to the receiver. So I think it is fair to go with Terry. His run after catch is fantastic too, and he's going to get a lot of catches with that team.
Yeah, so I really like going Terry McLaurin here. I think him and Jefferson give me great upside at wide receiver, kind of helping my team. You see Kelsey, Jefferson, McLaurin, all high upside players, even ETN really kind of making up in case that Aaron Jones pick doesn't pan out. Obviously, like I said, early in the offseason, we don't know what football team he's going to be a part of next year. Post-free agency, a lot of this stuff is going to be cleared up. But for now, a lot of projections and guessing games going on. So then I've got some other stuff to look at here. Obviously, I don't have a quarterback yet, but I filled out most of my starting lineup besides kicker and defense, which do not matter to me right now in the 6th round. I look at a guy like Kyler Murray, tied to DeAndre Hopkins. Christian Kirk is there. I think that with those rushing, the rushing value you can get out of him as well, I really like Kyler Murray. So I think I'm going to take him here at the top of the 6th round. I think this is right around where he should be going. Obviously, Watson's still on the board, but with uncertainty where he's going to play, I pick Murray over Watson for that spot.
Yeah, I think the other guy that we still haven't seen go, I believe, is Josh Allen.
Or Rodgers.
Or Aaron Rodgers. So we're seeing Dak Prescott go before Josh Allen, which I don't think that's going to be the case.
I don't think that's going to happen either.
But
yeah, I think it's tough to say you pick a guy coming off a broken leg over a guy who was
number
second
one
or third in MVP.
Number one in fantasy quarterback ranking. So Zach Ertz will probably go to another team. He could be kind of a sleeper tight end pick. Clearly not here at this pick, but he's someone that should definitely be considered. Darren Waller is still there. I think I have to go Darren Waller because he should have gone earlier. He's a 4th to 6th round guy, I suppose.
I think some people might even take him in the 3rd. I mean, you see George Kittle going at the 3-8.
Yep.
I don't. That's one that kind of slipped through the cracks there. I think
there's Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, one after another.
People need to be opening their eyes up to Darren Waller. He should be going before Mark Andrews as much as I like Mark Andrews. And he should be going within 3 picks either side of George Kittle.
I'm just going to say this. We did not make these rankings, okay?
Yes.
This is as good as it gets for this, unless we were to manually do all of these, which is just a waste of our time and yours.
Yeah, if you guys want to watch a 17-hour mock draft where we pick literally every single player, well, we'll see you guys
Maybe
there.
on the Patreon? I don't know.
We could. Free live stream for all Patreon members.
Yeah, there you go.
You're back up for the 7-6.
Yeah, we saw Justin Fields go and Jalen Waddle as well, which is someone I would have definitely considered depending on what team he went to. I would have considered in the 7th round because we really like Jalen Waddle, and I think he'll be a very good receiver right away.
Hold up, where did Devontae Smith went? The 5-5. Wow.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase went.
Gotta love the public ADP.
4-6. So, yeah. I've got all my positions. I just need some depth here. A flex, technically. We got Singletary, who I love him as a player, but they just don't run the ball. They just never run the ball. Oh, boy.
Here we go. We're back.
We're back. Ronald Jones, again, I really like him, but I have a feeling that he's just going to get screwed over, and Leonard Fournette, who is a decent running back,
I would say as
show up
the RB3 on your team, though, Ronald Jones could be a solid pickup. So I wouldn't be closed-minded to that pick at all. I think, what are we, in the 8th round now? 7th round. That might be an interesting spot to go because Fournette has had injuries. If he goes down, then, I mean, I don't think they're going to bring LaShawn McCoy back and have him steal his touches. So that'd be baffling to me if they did that. But
Kyle Pitts is here. I would not take him at this point because Darren Waller was picked by me. Right. But DJ Shark is definitely someone to consider with a QB coming into that team. I think he's a sleeper this year. So I'm going to go DJ Shark.
Yeah, could be a way to go there. Still a lot of nice players at the wide receiver position, which I think... You know, we all fantasy analysts talk about it. The wide receiver position is so deep. There's guys you can get to play in your flex down here in the 7th, 8th, 9th, even 10th round that you can project as sleeper players that are going to go out there and be starters for your team. My favorite guy last season was Deontay Johnson. I owned him in just about every league we were in. And he was inconsistent, but he put up great numbers when he was on. And he had drop issues, led the league in drops last year, but... Deontay was still a very productive player. So
yeah, I think for a young guy like that, he's just developing. He's just going through those growing pains, and I think he'll develop into one of those big players.
So an interesting pick that I see here is Courtland Sutton. Obviously tore up his knee last year, so there's some doubts I have about that. Not exactly the most ideal situation, especially for a big 6'4", 215-pound wide receiver.
Even
but
the QB situation as well.
That is a little bit sticky too. Will Fuller could be an interesting one. He's probably going to be on the move. Moving on from the Texans as a free agent this year. He could end up in New York.
Sleeper. Clearly, this is an early draft, so Will Fuller will end up on a team eventually, and drafts will have him higher because we'll know where he is, and we'll see if he's a number one on a certain team because he can be. Will 100%. Fuller showed us that he can be a number one. I don't think it was PEDs, right? It was something else.
He claimed that a physical therapist or a sports trainer gave him something that he said was not outlawed by the NFLPA, but it turned out that it was. If you look at Will Fuller here, I'm not sure if you can see his full season stats, but I think he only had around like 50 receptions.
Yeah.
But he had such a high average yards per catch.
Yeah.
And his touchdown numbers were great as well. And he was suspended for most of those games, but was putting up wide receiver 1 numbers at the time. So I really like the idea of that. I also want to check in on running backs here. Since I'm not too in love with that Aaron Jones pick, I want to have a surefire and safer guy at that RB3 spot. It looks like is
got lots of rookies on here. I mean, you still got
Ronald
Singletary.
Jones is still out there.
Ronald Jones would probably be the most sure one since these rookies. We don't know. I don't expect Kenneth Gainwell to start right away for whatever team he goes to.
Yeah, I don't either. So I ended up going with Ronald Jones there. He's the most proven prospect on the board, in my opinion, at this spot. And actually, we've got A.J. Dillon down here that's being slept on. So potentially I could double up here late. I think A.J. Dillon will be the starter for the Packers. Clearly, we don't know yet, and I think that's why his ADP is lower. I think a lot of people still, maybe some more uninformed members of the fantasy public, probably just assume that every guy is going to suit up in the same jersey they were in last season. Yeah. Aaron Jones is 94% not going to be a Green Bay Packer. Yeah. In that case, A.J. Dillon's draft stock is going to shoot up to the moon because you've got a starting running back for a NFL franchise. So I think I'm going to go back with A.J. Dillon here, just take the value where it's at, and get myself a nice running back depth that I can use to overcome any injuries or misses on the draft board here, because I've already got a really strong top 2 wide receiver core and tight end with quarterback pairing as well.
So Courtland Sutton went, Devin Singletary, Rondale Moore, which is very interesting to me, then Marquise Brown and Devontae Parker. I'm hoping that the Dolphins can get another receiver. We see Devontae Parker and Williams there. They're just big guys who are good in the red zone. I think Tua needs a speedier guy, so maybe a guy like Rondale Moore later in the draft at the 22, I believe, is where they're at.
Who?
With their second pick, the Dolphins.
That's 18, I think.
18, yeah. So maybe it seems a little high for him. But anyway, I think they should get another receiver. Here I have the options of, I'm not liking running back at this point.
Running back's getting pretty darn thin
but
here.
I do need another one. I only have 2. So I suppose Tariq Cohen is still up there. He could add some value to a team. I don't like him as a number 3.
I'd say not in the 8th round either.
No.
I think that's a bit of a reach for a guy that's strictly a handcuff. Maybe in 2018 when he was used a lot more as a gadget player.
I mean, Chase Edmonds could also be considered here. He kind of splits carries with Kenyon Drake, and they both get catches. It's a very odd situation there.
I loved Chase Edmonds last season. I used him as a flex in 2 flex leagues a lot because of Kenyon Drake's injuries, and he just get explosive plays. He was a nice utility piece.
What was really sad is that Jordan Howard and Matt Breida virtually didn't play this season.
That was a whiff for a lot of fantasy teams last year. Matt Breida, I think, was one of probably a lot of analysts' favorite sleeper picks, and he just never panned out. Injured a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
Jordan Howard had, a couple goal line carries the whole year, and then went to Philly on the practice squad.
Yeah. I think Chase Edmonds would make sense here. He's very low on here, but he would put up flex numbers.
Is this your RB3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to take to take a guy like Edmonds here.
Yeah, I think that it's important. I think there's definitely better wide receivers available on the board, but I think you'll be able to get those guys coming back here to your next pick. You just can't wait too long. 2 running backs that are starting level players are great on draft day, but if you don't at least have 4 guys, I'd say, you can get yourself in a sticky situation really, really quick. And if you find yourself in that spot where you're down low on running back depth, you're probably not going to win your games because missing a starting level player is a huge issue for teams.
What really confuses me is that Amon-Ra St. Brown is higher than Kadarius Toney and Tylan Wallace, but and Terrace Marshall. So that's very odd to me. I do think he's a decent receiver and a good prospect. There's a lot of receivers in this draft that I really like. Chase Claypool was interesting last season. Darius Slayton could see an increase since that offense should increase some
hopefully
some action.
I think
we'll
if they can get a wide receiver that is more of a true one than Slayton, I think that would actually help his numbers because he can be more efficient at the very least.
Brandon Cooks is not someone who's very desirable at this point. Michael Gallup showed some flashes at the end of the season. I was really disappointed in him overall for his consistency. I thought he'd get the ball way more. Tyler Boyd, we also
I like that.
We saw some good things. Otherwise, Deontay Johnson is up there.
Still there, yeah.
So I think I'm going to go Deontay Johnson. I'm willing to take more of that risk. Boyd, we know he's going to see the field a lot, but I think Deontay Johnson will too, and that they still need to address kind of the quarterback situation because Roethlisberger is going to be a little different, and they need to get a tackle too because Villanueva is going to be leaving. So a little more pressure.
Free agent.
Yes,
so we'll see if they bring him back or not.
I just think that passing deep is going to be a little harder for that team, and that's really where he strives.
Yeah, and Deontay Johnson had a humongous amount of targets last year.
Yeah.
He was seeing the football thrown his way many, many times in that Steelers uniform last year. I think where I really like Tyler Boyd, who actually went 2 picks later, I was hoping he'd follow me at the 9-12. Whereas Tyler Boyd's a super safe floor guy and doesn't necessarily post a nice ceiling, I think Deontay Johnson's a little more boom bust. But at this part in the draft, he's either going to be your flex play or worst case scenario, a wide receiver 2. And I think if Deontay Johnson's your wide receiver 2, you're in a great spot. So especially with this being PPR, catches a 2-yard pass, you get 1.2 points right there. So Deontay posts a really, really nice upside, and at times he's a nice floor play as well. I've got some other guys down here I like. Deebo Samuel, I should actually check on. I wonder if his teammate, Brandon Ayuk, is still on the board, because if he is, I'd be highly interested in him. He is available. Otherwise, we've got guys like Jamison Crowder here that I could pick at the 9-12. I think I'm going to go out here. I only got 2 wide receivers right now. I'm going to pick Brandon Ayuk. When he was on the field, he was one of the most consistent players at the wide receiver position. He shot straight up the fantasy rankings list. He was scoring touchdowns. He was being used very dynamically in Kyle Shanahan's offense. He was being used as both a runner and a receiver. They were using him on those jet sweeps and whatnot. So I love his versatility. He's the type of player you look for. He almost reminds me of like a younger, more talented Robert Woods. So I think that part of him is really great. I know Shanahan likes those dynamic players at the wide receiver position.
I'm curious about the quarterback situation there, too. It could be if Deshaun Watson does end up there, that's a really nice target for Deshaun Watson.
That would be monstrous if they could get a hold of him. And then I think I'm going to double up here at wide receiver. I'm going to go out and take maybe one of the most disrespected fantasy players, and that's Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
Jamison Crowder is the wide receiver 1 for the Jets right now. Denzel Mims is on the up, and he's being very hyped this offseason. But Sam Darnold has showed us that when he's on the field, he wants to get the ball to Crowder, and Crowder is going to be the leader in targets for that team.
Yeah, here we saw Marvin Jones go, who we don't know where he's going to be. He might stay with the Lions. They could possibly afford him. Amon-Ra St. Brown went. Tom Brady went, who isn't actually that bad of a pick this year because he's going to produce. That team is going to be really good on the offensive side again. I think that part of it is Brady did struggle in a few games this year with his accuracy, but playoff Tom Brady just blinds us all because he's always amazing in the playoffs. Yeah. It's crazy.
The GOAT.
Yeah, Hunter Henry went, who I think he will see a pretty nice season. Herbert.
He's a free agent, so he could be a new uniform. I think Herbert could really use him.
He'll probably stay. He's one of the faces of that team. Matt Breida went. Jordan Howard's still there.
Yeah, we don't know where he's going to be at.
No.
Lots of rookies on the board.
Yeah, Tariq Cohen's still there, but I don't think it's worth taking him at this point. I think it would be better to get a rookie receiver, possibly.
They're all already snatched up, though, is the hard thing. They've taken so many of our
Terrace
rookies.
Marshall's still available. Kadarius Toney's still available. Deebo Samuel might be a sleeper this year.
Yeah, I think he could be someone that falls down, especially because of the injuries.
Yep.
I was just checking out the ADP for quarterbacks. They got Cap here at 999.
Cap deserves another chance too, just like Wentz, I think.
I don't think he'll ever get it though.
Unfortunately, I don't think he will. A guy like T.J. Hawkinson should have gone already.
Yes. Wait. What business is Pat
Freiermuth?
Say that. And then
Pat Freiermuth.
Jordan.
Brevin
here.
Jordan. Yeah.
No, Zach Ertz should not be going before him.
Yeah.
Gronk even.
So here I'm going to take T.J. Hawkinson.
We've got some bloated.
Noah Fant is there as well. So I'm going to take TJ.
Yeah, it's disrespectful to leave TJ. We've seen a lot of tight ends being reached on and slipping through the cracks here. So you're back.
We're
up
helping this
11-6.
develop into a better system.
A better space.
Yeah, better algorithm for these picks. I could get another QB here. Carson Wentz is there. It still says he's on Philly, but he has just been traded to the Colts.
Yep.
Cam Newton is not someone I'm interested in. Joe Burrow is an interesting prospect. Matthew Stafford. Zach Wilson's up there. Justin Herbert is actually someone who would go probably earlier.
I took a look at a lot of the quarterbacks. I wrote an article about this on the Patreon. I think he's going to go around somewhere between quarterback 8 and quarterback 10, which is still going to give you great value off of him. But yes, for now, he should be gone. Another guy, Drew Brees, still being drafted, even though he's probably not going to be in the league next year.
Yeah.
So here at the 11-12, obviously there's a lot of flaws. This is very developmental. Obviously, this ADP is. We can't make everything perfect for you guys, but we figured we'd give you a full draft since we've been just doing the top 3 rounds for a lot of our later videos.
And this helps you see some of the players that we really like.
Right.
If you look at my team, these are all players that we prefer in these spots. So, I mean, a guy like Chase Edmonds is lower end, but he's still a guy we consider to be fantasy relevant.
Right.
And Justin Herbert we really like, TJ Hawkinson. These are very consistent players. And then when you draft a team with consistent guys like Jonathan Taylor and Patrick Mahomes, Stephon Diggs, you can take more risks with guys like Deontay Johnson, who may have those drops, may have those flashy games, and then those quiet games. You can take more risks when your team is consistent on the top end, and then you can dish out some big points in the bottom end.
Right, and 100%. You get those guys early on who can be just the rock of your team, and then put guys around them that you kind of manipulate with their schedules. You know, if Deontay Johnson doesn't have a nice matchup, then let's take a look. DJ Chark might.
Yep.
And you can intertangle the two and just switch them out of your lineup and put yourself in a really great spot to win. Here at the 11-12, I'm going to go with the quarterback that I think is one of the best options to go for if you want to use a late quarterback strategy, and that's Ryan Tannehill of the Tennessee Titans. He's been one of the most productive fantasy players, I think, at the quarterback position over the last season and a half or so. He's been really, really good with the Titans. As that defense continues to crumble and erode, they have the more of a necessity to throw the football. A.J. Brown, who knows if we'll see Corey Davis there next season, but he's got himself some tight ends, and he even runs a little bit. So I think Ryan Tannehill is a guy who can be really, really solid in fantasy and is definitely going to finish as a top 15 quarterback at the least. I would definitely say he could fall between 10 and 12. So late quarterback, Ryan Tannehill's a great guy to go here.
Yeah, I think that Kirk Cousins is another one of those guys who people kind of sleep on, but you can take him later in a draft and have a very nice, possibly number 1 QB, but Tannehill's more of a number 1 than Kirk, but very serviceable backups if you take them later in your drafts.
Another pick to point out here, just I want to make sure you're aware of this. You don't have to pick him by any stretch of the imagination, and obviously we've seen our flaws with the ADP, but with Wentz being traded, Jalen Hurts down here at ADP.
He could be one of those sleeper QBs this year.
100%. He has the rushing ability and is definitely the type of player that we could see take off and have a great fantasy season. let's see. I've got myself 4 running backs, so I'm feeling good about that right now. I think I might want to address a second tight end. It's getting later here in the draft. Otherwise, go back to a flex player. I think that, let's check out the wide receivers here. We've got Ruggs, Marshall, Hardman, Kirk, Jalen Reagor, I think could be interesting. Chase Claypool, I think, probably has to go off the board at this point. I think it's fair to say Chase Claypool, we might not see Juju on the Steelers next year. And I think he's going to ask for a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think it would be beneficial for that locker room to lose a Corvette TikTok superstar. So Chase Claypool could be a really nice touchdown threat. He could be a guy who makes big plays down the field. We saw him do that at times this year. And he could be a really nice sleeper down here at the bottom of the board.
Saw Austin Hooper go, Terrace Marshall, Greg Sirline, who
Greg the leg.
He should actually see an increase if Dak does compare to how he was when he was healthy in the beginning of the season. Yep. Kerryon Johnson, Henry Ruggs. Ruggs could actually see an uptick.
He could for sure.
I think he is a guy that can produce in fantasy, but when you watch him, you're not seeing a pristine NFL player. But I think that he could produce in fantasy. So here I am this is the 12th round. We could be thinking defense. I think that it's best to go defense as late as you can. I think there's a lot of good defenses that people undervalue. I don't think you need to go too high on defense.
People in fantasy need to place more of a value on pass rush and what that does. Because you don't even have to necessarily get a bunch of sacks.
No.
It forces disruptions. It limits your point production, first of all, for the opposing offense, and it creates turnovers. So pressuring defenses are great. That's why I was all over Tampa this past season. And in leagues where even we had some formats where your defense starts at 0 and you can only go up with sacks, turnovers, touchdowns, and whatnot. Tampa would just give me sacks, and that would be enough. And it was a really nice
sometimes
situation.
It's even just matchups in weeks, and you pick up the defense you need. This is clearly a 14-player team, but
roster for now.
Some are going to be a little bigger, and you're going to have 2 defenses that you can rotate, and some you can just cut and pick up another one that has a really nice matchup. It's something that you should watch and that we can help you out with when the season starts. So here, I basically just need to get another bench player. I could get, I believe Cohen went already.
Check that for you.
Otherwise, Noah Fant should have gone already. Christian Kirk is someone to consider. Mecole Hardman is also pretty nice. Zach Moss, we expected more goal line carries, and again, this is PPR. Alexander Madison, I don't have Dalvin Cook on my team, but Alexander Madison's a really nice guy to have, and he could even be a trade kind of guy to give a handcuff to another team. I'm going to take Alexander Madison. When he's in, he looks really nice for the Vikings, and he could start somewhere.
Right, and I think adding that 4th running back to your roster is pretty important, especially if we're only doing 14 rounds here. And you're going to have to go with kicker and defense here in these last 2 picks. So I think that's
kicker is the one going here. I'm going to go kicker. Okay, so lots of really good kickers. Harrison Butker is good. We saw Rodrigo Blankenship look fantastic. Jason Sanders just got the bag, and he's going to be kicking a lot for that, hopefully very dynamic Miami offense. Young Hui Koo is still there, a favorite of ours. He was leading in points in the year. I believe the other kicker that was fantastic this season.
I think he missed a game and didn't finish as
he did miss. Yeah, he missed a game. Who was the other guy that surprised me? I forget. Oh, Daniel Carlson was actually
kicker
on.
1.
Yes, he was number 1, and he was tied with Young Hui Koo and
Zerline, wasn't it?
And yes, I think so. Here, I really like Rodrigo Blankenship. I'm going to leave Young Hui Koo to you if he can drop to you, so I'll take Rodrigo here.
There we go.
Butker, I know we took a long time for kickers, but we love our kickers.
All right, since you disrespected Young Hui Koo, I'm going to go out and pick my boy, the Atlanta Falcons beast. I just watched a very impressive video of him teaching people how to do squats on TikTok the other day. So young Hoku's got himself some nice squatters legs.
All right, here it is. You got your next pick.
And then for defense, I'm going to go with the 49ers. Nick Bosa back this season.
Yeah.
That front seven is gnarly. I think you have to go out there and, like I said, get a defense and get pressures. LA, another great example of that at the 14.3. Tampa Bay at the 14.5.
Nice
another
defenses.
defense I love for fantasy. Not a big fan of the Vikings at the 13.4.
Or the Jets.
Or the Jets, but that's okay. It's all right, sleeper.
Yeah.
Well,
you never know. Maybe they do
time.
some big things. Maybe J.J. Watt goes to the Jets and they draft a few guys.
Yeah, I love the sleeper app. They're gonna get their ADP. There's nothing they can do about it right now. It's early off season. It's gonna get better and better as the off season goes on. And I used this all last offseason.
Yeah.
This is a great website and utility for fantasy purposes. Just stick with it, you guys. It'll get better.
Yeah, and again, this isn't just about what this looks like on the screen. It's kind of our analysis, and I'm hoping that you can soak in our information. But it's kind of just the strategies that we're taking. Clearly, the teams that are around us are not drafting the same way we are. Like 3 running backs 100%. In a row. That kind of thing. We try to stay away from that.
And I think something that can be great for you guys and for us as creators is as the offseason progresses, as we get more of these question marks and these variables filled out throughout the offseason, we're going to do some live fantasy mock drafts with you guys. We're going to invite you into the channel. We're going to go live with you guys. And we're going to have you guys do a mock draft with us. So you're going to be able to put on display how you draft your fantasy football team, how you want to have your team look, and challenge us. Show us what you've got to offer. We want to see what your guys' ideas are too, because we've been doing this for a while. Obviously, we have found out what works for us and what doesn't. And so that's what we're going to be sharing with you guys this entire offseason and just trying to make you guys the best fantasy players possible, because last season we didn't get the opportunity to have that offseason time with you. So just stick with it here. Listen to what we've got to say. And I think that we're going to come out the better on the other side, much better off.
I think I'm going to take Washington football team here.
I love that one as well.
And,
very underrated pick.
And then Dolphins go next. They were the other one I was
even.
Considering. Colts are another one to consider. They're just very consistent. Yeah. Another one is even Packers were decent. They struggle with the run, but that team scores so much that they put pressure and they can force some bad passes and get some things going on.
Trubisky picks.
Yeah, Trubisky picks. Hopefully it's not Trubisky picks next year. Hopefully it's someone else throwing picks occasionally. Not too many.
Alrighty, you guys. That'll wrap up today's video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, go check out the Patreon. I think it's at the top of the screen right now.
Yes,
Not
I
too
think.
sure. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see y'all next time. Peace out.